Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the second shelf and to another book haul. Can you see I'm excited about all the books I bought and I want to share them with you, as always. And the first one is a memoir, Anna Wiener. I say Wiener, but it's probably Wiener, I guess, because you pronounce it the English way, but it's such a German-sounding name. Anyway, not really important. Uncanny Valley, published in 2020. This is a memoir. Anna Wiener was born in the 1980s. She studied sociology, and then she worked in New York for a literary agent. And in her mid-20s, I think she just turned 25, she decided to switch careers and started working for tech companies. So the Silicon Valley, hence Uncanny Valley companies. First in New York, and then she moved to San Francisco and worked for two different startup companies there. And this is her account of how she experienced the life as a woman, as a non-tech, in that uncanny valley. And I wanted to read this book already last year when it was published, but I never gotten around to it. It has mixed reviews, I have to say, but I was just interested in the topic. But as many of you will know, I'm again judging the BooktubePrize this year, the BooktubePrize 2021. I will leave a link to the website of the BooktubePrize down below, and also to Robert's channel from Bader Hortz, who organizes the BooktubePrize, if you want to have more explanation about it. But anyway, we just started the first round, and I'm judging nonfiction, and this is in my group. So I had a good reason to finally buy it. The next one is also a buy for the BooktubePrize nonfiction, my group, and another memoir, and that is Meredith Tolusan. Yes, I practiced that and now I'm doing it wrong anyway. Fairest, also of course published in 2020. If it's for the BooktubePrize 2021, it has to be published in the US last year, 2020. Meredith Tolusan was born as Mark Tolusan in the Philippines, and she is an albino. And this is the memoir of her childhood in the Philippines, and then she moved to the US when she was about 12 years old, studied in Harvard still as a he, and then transitioned to Meredith. And I'm using not they, but she, because that's what Meredith does herself. She uses the pronoun she. So this is a memoir, a combination of the fact that Meredith is an albino and what it means to her to have this white skin and blonde hair, sort of goldenish hair, but it's of course also a coming of age in terms of gender and sexuality. And again, I'm reading this for the BooktubePrize, so I will not be able to talk about it until we finalize the judging of the first round, which will be I think we have to hand in our ballots end of March, so I won't be able to talk about this, I'm halfway through, until the beginning of April. The next book, the third book, is partly also a BooktubePrize book, because I'm so lucky with the group I'm in. I have to, quote unquote, have to read Cast by Isabel Wilkerson, also published, of course, in 2020. But I'm reading this mainly for Black History Month. So it's, buy one, get one free kind of reading deal. And I have been meaning to read this ever since it was published, and everybody's raving about it. So I'm like I said, I'm so lucky that this is in my BooktubePrize group. Isabel Wilkerson, of course, you might have, is a Black American journalist, researcher, and she published a book about 10 years ago about the Great Migration, the warmth of the something sun, the warmth of other suns. And I read this book back when, way before I was on YouTube or Goodreads, and it was fabulous. And this one looks at the lies that divide us. So it's about racism and the hidden caste system that underlies racism in the US in particular, and the caste system like a caste system in India. So I'm more than happy that I have to read this again, quote unquote, have to read this. And I will read it in February for Black History Month. And other books in my group, in the BooktubePrize group, will have to wait until March. The next book I bought, also nonfiction, is also for Black History Month, and that is a new release. It was released in January this year, I think the 5th of January or something, beginning of January, and that is, let me hold it, Koa Beck, White Feminism. Koa Beck is a Black American journalist. She worked for Jezebel, but also writing for other venues, Vogue. And in this book, she explores, like the title says, the history of white feminism and the exclusion of women of color, but also women that are not straight. So I think it's more about straight white feminism than anything else. I'm, as you know, very interested in the history of feminism, and especially topics like intersectionality and what we as white feminists did wrong, our exclusion of other people of color, but also of other LGBTQ plus community people. So when I saw this, and it's a history, from the suffragettes to influencers and who they leave behind, I immediately had to get the book. And I'm really hoping that I will have enough time to actually read it during Black History Month. So the last three are fiction, so we're moving on to fiction, and the first of the fiction books is also a book that I bought for Black History Month, and that is Nalo Hopkinson, Brown Girl in the Ring, first published in 1998, I think. I'm ill prepared today. 1998, yes. Nalo Hopkinson is a Jamaican-born Canadian writer. She writes fantasy and sci-fi, influenced by Caribbean folk tales, lore, mythology. This is her debut novel, and if you're following my channel, you know that one of my goals or reading aims for 2021 is a science fiction project. So I want to read sci-fi, in particular modern classics by female science fiction writers that I haven't read yet. And Nalo Hopkinson was one of those. The book is set in a dystopian future in Toronto, but the community she describes is of Caribbean descent. I'm reading this as a buddy read with Heidi from my reading life, and this is not a BookTube book, so you will hear what I have to say about it once we finished. We are almost done. Spoiler alert, not my type of book, but I will tell you in more detail why in the next recent reads. The next novel, the next book I bought is also a sort of a buy one, get one free double dip read. And it's a 2020 debut novel, These Ghosts Are Family by Maisie Card. Maisie Card is a Jamaican-born writer who grew up in the Bronx, in New York, or was it Brooklyn? Let's say she grew up in New York. And this is a book about a man who has a secret. His name is Stanford Salomon. So it's set in the Caribbean, I think on Jamaica, because he actually faked his death and stole his best friend's identity. And so he has two families. I heard about this book last year when it came out, but then it sort of vanished from my radar. But Black History Month, so qualifies for that. But the reason I was finally urged to pick this up is that it's also the one of the two books that Karen from Run Right Reads picked for February for her book club. This year, she is reading Caribbean literature, two books each month. I will leave a link to her channel down below. So if you're interested, you might want to join. And two books is a bit much for me, but I have been meaning to read this, so I will join her book club for this one, and I will also read it for Black History Month. Yeah, me. And the last book I bought is also for my genre spotlight sci-fi project in 2021, a modern classic, Joanna Russ, The Female Man. And again, I did not look up the correct publication date, 1975. And I have never read Joanna Russ, and this is a feminist sci-fi classic because it's situated on a planet where there's only one sex, the female sex. Joanna Russ, by the way, was an American sci-fi writer. She died approximately 10 years ago. So it's, like I said, a modern classic published in 1975. And look at the cover. It's so old-fashioned in a way. But I'm very much looking forward to reading this one as well. So these were the 7 books that I bought in February to share with you. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. Let me know. Talk to me down in the comments whether you read any of these, whether you bought books or a book or got a book from the library that you are excited about in February. And I'll talk to you all soon in the next one.